on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The Voices America trusts. Download it now.
Former President Trump's legal team asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn an appeals court ruling that allows federal prosecutors to continue to pore over some of the documents seized in the August raid on his home before the special master can finish his review of them. In Seattle, an organized Not in My Backyard movement against housing for the homeless.
Residents in Seattle's Chinatown protest nearly every day to block what they call a megaplex homeless shelter on the edge of their neighborhood. Part of a downtown area already with a dozen homeless shelters, rising crime and vacancy rates, and scores of addicted and mentally ill people. The $66 million project, funded largely with federal COVID relief money, is an expansion of this 270-bed shelter, which was set to close this year. King County will add 50 tiny houses, a 60-bed sobering center, and a 40-bed shelter for homeless people who are drug addicted and mentally ill. Officials say there are more than 700 people living on the surrounding streets.
Fox's Dan Springer. A jury's been seated in the trial of accused Waukesha Christmas parade killer Jarrell Brooks. He's accused of killing 6 and injuring more than 60. A new poll finds Americans' goals for their standard of living remains about the same, just seen as harder to attain.
Raising a family and owning a home, 2 things most people still say are important to them, but about half say those goals are harder to achieve compared to their parents' generation. A new poll by the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy and the Associated Press Nork Center also finds 49% of adults surveyed say it's hard to improve their standard of living these days. And more than half, 54%, think it's unlikely young people today will have a better standard of living than their parents. Race, ethnicity, and age contribute to differences in outlook, with adults age 60 and older and black people more likely to report it's easier for them than it was for their parents to have a good standard of living, raise a family, and own a home. Lisa Brady, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Sidulus Maasi Guam for 40 amazing years of support for the UOG Endowment Foundation. Through your generous contributions, we have been able to award many student scholarships, help fund college programs, and facilitate capital improvement projects at the University of Guam. As we celebrate this milestone occasion, we look forward to your continued partnership and many more years of collaboration with our island community. Viva UOG Endowment Foundation.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to Tall Tales. It is Wednesday, 4 in the afternoon. Looks like a little bit of rain is falling, but we are bright and sunny here in the Point Studios. We won Pica's Best Radio Station for 2021, and we will continue to give you quality broadcasting, expert radio talk show content, and really bad dad jokes here on Tall Tales. My name is Jose. In the booth is Daryl.
Yep.
And I want to welcome you today. Let's go to Jamie Cunny. Should get a little serious because today is a little serious on the op-ed or the editorial coming out of Guam PDN. Let's not even talk about that other publication. They're not even trying. So we talked a little bit. I don't know. Did we talk about this on the air or after we went off the air about what's happening with Japan and the Korean missile launch?
I looked that up. No, we didn't. The news came in yesterday. But, last night I went up on Google Earth, and I took the trajectory.
Right.
That missile flew 2,850 miles. And the way they shot it, it went in between, like, the northern part of Honshu and the southern part of Hokkaido.
Okay.
And what it did, that was the smallest area of Japan where if it fell apart, it would, kill people, by falling debris. But by flying over that narrowest part of Japan, it splashed down halfway between the Aleutians and Midway. And if it had kept, let's say that it was a rocket that could go 10,000 miles,
That's
it would have
the
gone
US.
straight down. No, it would have gone straight down the west coast, about 1,000 or 1,500 miles off the coast of the Americas, all the way down to South America. It actually couldn't have hit anything. It's like the only place they can shoot that. The only place North Korea could have shot the missile, and this was pointed out in one of the articles I read, that it was the only way that they could shoot the missile without setting off alarms that it was aimed at the U.S.
Oh, it
or
set
Guam.
off alarms enough, though. I mean, just the fact that they launched it, right?
Over someone else's territory,
right.
yeah.
And so our view talks about this. I have another editorial that's pretty close to what the PDN wrote, but this is our view from the Guam Pacific Daily News. Region should be concerned by North Korea missile launches. Although the ballistic missile North Korea sent over Japan on Tuesday posed no immediate threat to Guam, the launch should raise concerns for everyone in our region. The Associated Press described the launch as the most provocative weapons demonstration by North Korea this year as it ramps up missile tests in its push to build a full-fledged nuclear arsenal that viably threatens U.S. allies in the American homeland and earns the country recognition as a nuclear state.
Oh, also, if you turn the trajectory towards Guam, it would have gone halfway between Guam and the Solomons. That's where it splashed. It would have.
Japan issued evacuation notices and suspended train services as the missile, which would be capable of reaching Guam, flew overhead. Residents in northeastern regions were told to evacuate to shelters at the first such alert since 2017, when North Korea fired an intermediate-range missile over Japan twice in a span of weeks and directly threatened Guam. The launch was condemned by both Japan and the United States, and rightfully so. Japan described the projectile as an intermediate-range or longer missile, but the United States said it was a long-range missile. But regardless of the actual range of the missile, the decision to launch it over another country was appropriately described by the U.S. and its allies as dangerous, reckless, and destabilizing. South Korea Japanese defense officials said the missile traveled 2,800 miles at a maximum altitude of 600 to 620 miles before landing 1,900 miles off of northern Japanese coast. Guam is less than 2,200 miles from the inland north of North Korea, where South Korea's military leader said the missile originated. So we are well within the range of this particular weapon. Unfortunately, those of us on Guam have little power to influence the action of world leaders. We can hope that the United States is true to the words of National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson, who said the country will continue its efforts to limit North Korea's ability to advance its prohibited ballistic missiles and weapons of mass destruction programs. So far this year, North Korea has test-fired 40 missiles in 20 different launches, including 5 tests in the last 10 days. Those of us at range of those missiles should be wondering, How and when will we see the limits imposed? And Wall Street Journal, it's very similar. It's a little bit more on the political scene in the United States. The missile another launch over Japan shows the need to reinforce deterrence. The missile test was the 23rd this year, the highest annual pace ever. It follows a threat to respond to the recent resumption of U.S.-South Korea military drills. Tuesday's launch was also the longest to date at more than 2,800 miles, a reminder that North Korean missiles have the range to threaten the U.S. territory of Guam, some 2,100 miles away. We're 100 miles closer, according to a Wall Street Journal. It's
a rounding error.
President Trump suspended the allied military exercises as he fruitlessly courted Mr. Kim, and President Biden deserves credit for resuming them as a sign of U.S. resolve. Mr. Kim usually acts up this way when he wants to frighten Western countries to return to talks so he can coerce more money from them. The U.S. and Seoul have tried the bribery route many times, but the North isn't going to give up its nuclear threat, which is the only reason why anybody pays attention. The North has made strides toward developing a missile that could reach U.S. cities. It is also developing missiles to carry multiple warheads to be able to evade missile defenses. In September, North Korea reaffirmed its commitment to being a nuclear power, listing 5 conditions it would use for a preemptive strike, including if an attack on military or strategic targets were imminent. The U.S. has asked for a United Nations Security Council meeting on Wednesday, but don't expect more than pro forma denunciations. North Korea's patrons in China and Russia, which hold permanent seats on the council, would veto any meaningful effort to punish the North. The same goes for the resumption of the 6-party talks with the North that have failed many times. The original sin was letting North Korea get the bomb, and now the best response is deterrence. As Vladimir Putin's Ukraine invasion and nuclear threats show, the U.S. conventional and nuclear deterrent isn't as credible as it once was. Mr. Biden on Tuesday called the U.S. commitment to the region ironclad, which is important after Mr. Trump's uncertain trumpet. But the words have to be backed by credible military deployments and clear communication about the response if the North stages a preemptive attack. That has to be understood in Pyongyang and Beijing as the annihilation of the Kim regime. The U.S. defense budget needs a major spending increase from 3 towards 5% or more of GDP, where it was nearly in 2010. Japan is gradually moving to increase its military budget to 2% of GDP from the 1% cap rooted in the country's post-World War II pacifist constitution. South Korea can also do more. The post-Cold War era is over, and the new axis is forming against allied democracies. China seems to view Pyongyang's nuclear posturing as a useful irritant and won't block the provocation. Russia is happy to have the U.S. worry about a front other than Ukraine. Mr. Biden and other leaders have to explain to the American people the reality of this dangerous new world and what is required to meet it. And that's just North Korea being a giant irritant, causes uproar. I remember, I said this story many times, when they launched missiles probably back 5 or 6 years ago or so. Went around asking people what they thought about it. Are they concerned? The younger generations were concerned, didn't know what to make of it. They had their politics, and the older generations were like, I've made my peace with God. Whatever happens, happens. And I went away going, okay, I like that.
Was that North Korea or
North Korea.
China?
North Korea, yeah. And so it's interesting how we prepare, how we take it on a philosophical level. We're all going to be gone from this earth one day. How that happens, we don't really know. But there is a sense of frustration and fear when it comes to a war, especially when this island has directly been affected by war, World War II, with enemy combatants coming on land.
Actually, not just this island, but the Chamorros on this island and the Filipinos on this island and the Micronesians on this island have all a heritage, a common heritage of having been occupied by an imperial Japan.
That's
And
right.
that is in all of our heritages. It's not in the heritage of folks who migrated from the States or from other countries.
No, unless some of them experienced Pearl Harbor to an extent, or were in Europe at the time of World War II, and
but
they're
that's
immigrant
a
families
few.
as well.
That's few.
But again, regardless, it's raw here in the island in the sense that we are the only U.S. territory. Everyone talks about what happened up there in the Aleutians, was it?
Right.
But it wasn't as extensive as it was here on Guam. Anyways, we have a Holly. I don't have a name. Who's that on the line?
He just said he wanted to be called Rocket Launcher.
Okay. Go ahead, Rocket Launcher.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I got a question about that, the North Korean missile launch.
Go ahead.
In Israel, when the Palestinians launched their rockets, Israel has an answer. They send rockets up to blow those rockets that the Palestinians are sending over before they even hit the ground.
That's true.
That's the Iron Curtain.
Yes.
Okay, so what's going on over in North Korea? You talk about a bunch of Americans that need to be pulled out before they pulled out of Afghanistan. Why didn't they pull out the military, U.S. military in South Korea? They've been in there so long. But the problem I'm having is how come with military bases there in North Korea and South Korea and military bases in Japan, how come there's no Iron Curtain or Iron Dome?
Well, I would say that you have a good question. You have a very good question there. But, however, there is a very clear, distinct difference between what Palestine does or the ones that are throwing the missiles over to Israel as opposed to what North Korea is attempting to do. The ones in Palestine are intentional. They do make it sometimes over to land in Israel, and they aren't test rockets. They are intentionally shooting them towards a target, whereas North Korea is doing quote unquote testing, and they're almost like the U.S. or the rest of the world says don't cross this line, and North Korea puts their little toe over it. Or you ever play that game, or kids used to play that game in the backseat of the car, where they're
I
listen.
know what you're saying.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, hold on a second, real quick.
I dare you.
Well,
But
that's exactly what's happening. That's what the
quote,
difference is. Yeah, that's what the difference
you
is.
said quote unquote dangerous. So then, if it's not dangerous, so what do we got to worry about? We got nothing to worry about, right?
Yes and no. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah.
Immediately, missile tests from North Korea. We got nothing to worry about, right?
No, yes and no. There is worry.
So
but
that's what I'm saying. If we got nothing to worry about from North Korea, so then they should just pull out all the U.S. military there in South Korea. Because they're not a threat, right?
Okay, I'm not exactly sure where you're going now with this.
I'm just saying. I'm saying if you think that those missiles are not those test so-called, and you said quote unquote test missiles or dangerous missiles. So if they're not a threat,
well, you're kind of moving the goalpost of your listen.
What's the point of U.S. military being there in North Korea? I mean, in South Korea, and what's the point of them being in Japan?
Okay, now I'm going to answer your question, Sunut. Okay, so just hold on a second. You were asking about the difference between a Palestinian SWORI or level of missiles going towards Israel as opposed to what North Korea did. Now, if we want to talk about that comparison, that's fine, and there's a big difference. And so Korea is a testing, whereas Palestinian is a direct assault and attack. Now, if you want to talk in generalities about the threat of North Korea in general, that's a different story. So we have two things we need to discuss and talk about. If you just want to compare the two, if you want to compare the two as if they're the same.
I thought you and I are able to click, but we're not clicking because apparently you're not getting what I'm saying. So
I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Every missile, what I'm saying is every missile that idiot from North Korea launches should be considered armed and dangerous, should be considered just like the Israeli considers the Palestinian.
No, exactly. They're two different
when they
things.
land, they're gonna blow something up. Or your buddy there just talked about how they launched it on a certain area there between in a strait, and that if it broke up, it would have killed some people, maybe not a lot of people. So what's the? I mean, why would you not see my point? But that's okay, because all I'm saying is what's going on with the U.S. military.
Mr. Rocket Launcher.
Up right as soon as they.
I'm gonna put my Iron Curtain up in a second here, because I've heard already your point. And I understand where you're coming from, but what we're gonna do is just take a step back. Your initial question was, what's the difference between Palestinian attacks and a North Korean terror? That was your question, yes?
Comparison.
That was your comparison. So that's what I'm answering to. Now, your second point is that is the missile launch from Korea a threat or not? And I say yes, it is. But in comparison to Palestine, no. But as a threat overall, as something we should be looking at, absolutely. Anytime somebody who's as irresponsible. All right, Iron Curtain.
Setting up the Iron Dome here.
I'm going to put you on pause for a second, sir. The Iron Curtain, I put it right now just so I can get my point across. North Korea shooting missiles or testing missiles is a threat because it means they are experimenting. They want to show that they are a big muscle where they're at, and we have to watch them. But if you shoot down every missile that comes by, then that also is a sign to them that they're going to do something. We don't know what they're going to do because they're pretty, what's the word?
Well, it's like you could say the same thing about people like from Syria. They have a different way of negotiating.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the stability. The stability of North Korea is that we have them in a pinch. They need money. They don't have a gross domestic product. They don't have something that makes them even an itch in the area they're at. However, in the past, they were given the opportunity for nuclear energy. They received it, and they've converted that into nuclear armaments. When they test a missile, we can see where the missiles are coming from. We can see where they're going. There's always a danger of them going one way or the other where they're not intended to, but they absolutely not are the same level threat as what's happening in the Middle East with missiles coming from one place directly going to be landing on the other. Now, as far as pulling military out because we don't look at them as a threat, I'm not exactly sure what direction that Mr. Rocket Launcher was going into. But make no mistake, it's a different region. It's a different leader. It's a different philosophy, a different war strategy. I would take all threats seriously, but I wouldn't take them and apply the same level equally and generally because they're different.
And we are ready for him to throw. If his rocket yesterday was not in its particular trajectory, it would have been shot down because we've got those defenses in Japan and in South Korea. Both short range and long range.
Let me, before we go to the break, let me reach out a little olive branch to Mr. Rocket Launcher, to RL. I think the bigger issue here for us on Guam, the local issue, is why didn't we know about this rocket launch or this missile launch before everybody else knew about it? Why is it that Guam isn't being told? And I understand people want to say, well, we don't want to freak people out. We don't want to scare people. But at the same time, we're going to hear about it. And if we are able to put the narrative or do the rhetoric so that we are informed of stuff or informed of things like this happening, I think it would be, at least we wouldn't be talking about how come nobody is telling us. And then we can get to is how much of a threat is North Korea itself. But we have something that's happened in our region. It's in our back door, so to speak. And so that's why we're talking about it. Let's go to a break. Able to do that, Daryl? We'll be right back with more Tall Tales right after this. Don't go away.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Tell me about it, stud.
Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Festival is back on Saturday, October 22nd. We rockin' and rollin' at the Dusatani Guam Resort from 2 to 10 p.m. Bring your friends and come dressed in your best grease costume to win up to $500 in cash and prizes. So bust out those leather jackets and 50-style outfits as we party the night away at Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Fest. Don't be a square. Get your tickets now at craftbeerfestguam.com or cruise on by any 76 Circle K location. Now that's cool, baby.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And we are back. Tall Tales on KUSG 93.3 FM. My name is Jose. Had a little bit of a rocket burst there before we ended the last segment. Just want to say I misspoke. I don't have an iron curtain here at the studio. It's more like a
Iron Dome.
Nice woven blanket. Because I did not hang up on the gentleman. I just put him on in the pause for a little bit. But it looked like he didn't want to cool down.
And we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
But for the most part, this is serious. This is serious, but it's not the same degree for myself as a threat of what the Palestinians are doing. Now, if I was going to go into a silly little analogy of the kids in the back seat not touching each other, right? Just barely touching or hitting each other, but still irritating each other. Whereas the other kid who's definitely punching his little brother in the shoulder and giving him bruises. And I know that's a silly analogy because we're talking about definite violence and war. We're comparing the two between Palestine and North Korea. But that's how I look at it. However, North Korea is not just putting a finger close to it. They have like a sharpened knife right to our skin, and they can poke any time. They're like the kid who has
a mean streak
and toys that are dangerous.
And you don't know because he's in the back he's in the back seat with the other kids.
It's like his dad gave him a loaded shotgun, and he's only 5 years old, and I'm giving him too much credit.
There was a caller before our break, and he didn't want to go on the air. He just wanted to point out, as a point of clarification, that missiles are guided to a target. Rockets are simply lobbed. They're just sent up, anywhere. And wherever they land is good enough for the one who's sending it over.
And pretty much that's why they called it the Iron Curtain, because they have to put it up to hit all of the missiles or try to hit as many hit as many rockets as they can before they land.
And what we have is the Aegis system, which is on destroyers out in the.
Those are guided also?
No, the destroyers to shoot down guided missiles that are high trajectory. And then we also have the Patriots that are installed in here on Guam and also in Japan and South Korea.
But I go back to my first concern also of being aware here on this island and at least knowing what's going on. To know that Japan had scrambled or told their people to evacuate and they suspended service and stuff. That's pretty serious. You know, it stops everything. It stops all business.
Well, they were saying just in that area, it's the Aoki Prefecture and the southern part of Hokkaido, because if the missile had gone up and then malfunctioned and blew up, then the debris would have come down over that area. And it's the narrowest part of Japan that North Korea could have shot over. So even though there's relatively few people in a very densely populated island, that area endangered the fewest number of people, and and Japan responded in with localized alerts. It wasn't nationwide.
Right, and again, it's something that we're probably going to be seeing for a long time until a regime is changed in North Korea, and I'm not exactly sure how that would happen. Are they running out of brothers?
Better, please.
Yeah, are they running out of sons? I think there's a daughter taking over too, I hear. All right, let's move on to the card. All right, first on the card, we just did a USA versus Worldview, North Korea versus the rest of the world. I have something called, I'm going to attribute this to Biden. President Biden's Jim Eagle versus the law. Jim Eagle law versus the real law. We have the DOC versus the CSC. Academia versus trades, a two-parter on that also. Terlahi versus Governor LG. From yesterday, JRM versus Protehi Letexten, and also leftover that we didn't go over, but it's kind of on topic from what we talked about yesterday with the LGs. Is Ken LG versus Blue Continent. But let's get to the DOC versus the CSC. And we're seeing a lot of these, and I'm not exactly sure. Daryl, since you're Mr. Policy,
thank you.
Bring me up to speed on the main intent of what the Civil Service Commission mission is.
Employees of the government of Guam are protected from political interference against being removed from their jobs in order to open up jobs for political appointees or new hires, by having a place to bring their any job actions to for an independent review.
Is it meant for every single firing or when someone is let go?
Every classified employee.
Every single
but
time.
Classified, not
unclassified.
Not
right.
Unclassifieds and not short-term hires or probation. I think some people on probation, if it's done in a certain way, they have rights, but it's for classified employees.
Okay, because they seem to be pretty busy, especially with people I think should have been rightfully let go from in a no-fault employment situation. I don't know if Guam's private industry is like that, but obviously
it's a government policy on
government
its
is different, right? So we have 2 more correction officers fired. This is an article that comes from the PDN, and they there's a huge turnover there, from what I understand, and it is concerning. I'm not talking about the turnover of prisoners. I'm talking about the turnover of correction officers. I do understand that being a correction officer is a high stress level job. I have a brother-in-law who's a correction officer in the state of New York at the state penitentiaries. He doesn't even work in the same town or region that he lives in because he only works, I believe, 3 days out of the week, maybe even 4 at the most.
Yeah, I'd live as far away from Attica too if I worked there.
Right, and plus you don't want your family to be potentially threatened by a prisoner who could find out where you're at or something like that, locally, of course. So anyways, let's get back to this article. 2 more Department of Correction officers were fired in recent weeks, including an officer who allegedly failed to do a head count of detainees who escaped from the Manilao facility in June, and an officer who allegedly was insubordinate to the department's acting director. There are now 6 fired correction officers who have pending appeals with the Guam Civil Service Commission asking for their jobs back. According to Civil Service documents, Correction Officer Trevor Wolford was fired August 29th in connection with the June 2nd escape of TK Umalap and Joluao Soikan, who were being detained in isolation tents at the corrections facility. Documents state the corrections officer assigned to an earlier shift checked out just before 2 a.m., leaving Wolford in charge of the Zone 9 Bravo area which has 2 tents surrounded by a fence topped by barbed wire. The tents are isolation areas for detainees who either tested positive for Wuhan or refused to be tested. According to the termination documents, Wolford lied about conducting physical head counts in the tents at 2:45 a.m. and at 5:15 a.m. When Wolford counted the detainees at 6:20, Omalap and Soikan were missing, documents state, and he reported them missing to the Central Control Officer. Umalap was captured later that morning in Manilao, and Soikan was captured the following morning in Aganya. According to Corrections Department, officers are supposed to leave their air-conditioned post outside the Zone 9 fence, unlock the fence, and enter the tents in order to conduct a head count of detainees, a fire watch, and a range check. I just want to make note that they didn't describe what the post outside of Zone 9 is like. What's the temperature there?
Well, actually, I've been.
I know, but they say they mentioned an air-conditioned post, and then they didn't describe the environment of the other areas they're supposed to look at. But I digress.
The tents.
It's just very interesting that was put there. Wolford told internal investigators he did those things, but a video surveillance camera showed Wolford did not do any of those tasks for the duration of his shift, documents state. After seeing the video, Wolford allegedly admitted that he conducted the prisoner head counts from inside his control room, documents state. Wolford, who was fired for insubordination, refusal, or failure to perform his duties, and official misconduct, told the Civil Service Commission his firing was unfair and unjust, and that his termination notice contains factual areas and is defective. George Padawaran, a corrections sergeant assigned to the Agatna detention facility, was fired September 9th in connection with a June 16th incident at the Superior Court of Guam. Judge Maria Senzon brought corrections officials to court after Padawaran allegedly allowed a detainee to make an unauthorized phone call to a crime victim, documents state. Padawaran allegedly was insubordinate to Corrections Director Robert Camacho after the hearing, telling Camacho he should walk the line, documents state. After Camacho told Padawaran the department planned to take adverse action, Padawaran allegedly responded, "Go ahead." Padawaran was fired for refusal to perform his duties, insubordination, discourteous treatment to the public or other employees, and other misconduct. He told the Civil Service Commission his termination was unwarranted, unfair, overly harsh, and procedurally defective. According to firing documents, Padawaran was suspended for insubordination in 2018 and was counseled about insubordinate behavior violating the chain of command. And other correction officers with pending civil service appeals include Jeremy C. Flores and Makino James, were fired January 27th in connection with the November 1st, 2021 escape of Anthony Camacho, who was on suicide watch at the Manilao Adult Correctional Facility. He was supposed to be observed by officers every 15 minutes. The escape reportedly happened during James's shift, and Flores, who took the next shift, reportedly failed to notice, documents state. Corrections officer Manny Afaji was fired January 28th after he allegedly tested positive for I can't even pronounce that word today. Amphetamines and methamphetamines, there you go, last November during a random drug screening. And corrections officer Joseph Sakasat was fired August 10th, 2021 for allegedly disorderly conduct and harassment in May 2021 related to a pay dispute. Now, I'm not sure what the makeup of the correctional officers, how many there are, what's their shifts are like, but with everything that's going on with crime, detainees, people being incarcerated, I'd say this is concerning. And the CSC has a two-part. They shouldn't be concerned in the sense that they have to have knowledge of the corrections department, I think. I think they're concerned more as the procedure.
Procedures.
Right. But at the same time, is there any kind of oversight from the legislature on the corrections department? I know Camacho is actually supposed to be retired, right? And he's an acting director right now?
Whoever it is who processes these employees out for cause has to do it right. And if they don't do it right, no matter who it is, then those can those decisions can be reversed. Just like if these same employees took the cases to court, and they didn't, and the lawyers got involved for both sides, and the jury decided on behalf of the employee, then because if the government didn't make its case or if it didn't follow its own procedures properly, then the employee gets reinstated.
Yes, and that's process, and that's
process.
That's all understanding that one side is guilty of not doing process, and one side is claiming that they didn't. But what I'm talking about, and I alluded to at the beginning when I talked about the stress levels of working as a correctional officer, is that something that we have to look at because, we do have a limited workforce here on the island. We do have quite a number of detainees and detainees coming in through the system. What is the environment like that we have so many of these kind of incidents? And it doesn't look like they're just simple procedure incidents. These are real things that are documented that we've even seen. I mean, an escapee, a head count, escapes are pretty big, right?
Well, there's 3 escapes just in the ones that you mentioned.
Yeah, right.
And a phone call.
Right.
So these are procedures that were broken in the course of work.
Yeah, and
it's not about they have to recruit people, put them through, and hopefully they work. If they don't work, then they get fired, and hopefully
that's the oversight that I want to see. Yeah,
but the administrative people have to do their jobs right as well.
Okay, and you're assuming that they aren't.
No, I'm
but
saying
what I'm
that
saying is I'm looking at
charge is in the Civil Service Commission that the administrators did not do their job right, and that's a defense that is available to the employee.
Understood.
And then there's a process.
Understood. That's the understanding. That's the understanding of what this is about. But again, I'm going back to: do we have a concern here about what's going on at the DOC beyond procedural things that you're talking about?
No, some of it is behavioral because they were fired for behaviors, for cause. So,
Okay.
So yeah, there's a problem up there if people are not doing their job right. And how many times have employees not done their job right, but it did not result in an escape?
The reason why I asked this question, I don't know if anybody
escapes.
The reason why I asked this question, I'm not sure if anybody else has this concern that I have as well, is that we hear a lot more about the procedural and why the CSC is looking at it, but I don't hear too much from our lawmakers or anybody else working at the facility that what is the morale like? What is going on over there that could be even attributing to this flow of detainees coming in and out? These detainees thinking they can escape. These detainees thinking that there is nobody watching. And yeah, it does all the way go back up to the director as well. But something is happening at DOC.
The employees,
that's beyond just looking at procedure and going through
But the employees have to do their jobs because these people escaped when the employees did not do their job. That's what the case is about. They're saying they were fired for a reason. They had.
And I'm going to say again,
reasons.
you've established that. We've established that.
But you're asking if there is a broader problem with DOC.
Does anybody have a concern about that? And
we all have a concern.
Okay. Let's move on, Daryl. I feel like you love mud.
No, I'm not.
You love mud.
It's you're asking whether the public is concerned. Of course they're concerned. Even the legislature is concerned, but the job has to be done by the people who are getting paid.
So let's go on to the next thing here. I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's just I don't know. On the next thing here is JRM versus Protegi Letexan. And I'm sorry. You're making me laugh today. Excuse. We had an article the other day of Chief Judge Tedinko ruling against Protegi Letexan. Basically because they didn't have the authority or the means to do something they wanted, and that's to stop some burning that was going on, open burning pits. This article came out, I think yesterday in the Pacific Island Times, and it states an opinion by the Joint Region Marianas. We're coming up on a real quick break, Daryl. Let's take the top of this break, and we have 2 more minutes to go before the top of the hour, the big halftime show. You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. Don't go away.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better.
Announcing the point on Alexa.
In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Welcome back to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. My name is Jose. We moving on to another subject, but we have James in the green room on the Department of Correction oversight. Is this our James?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey,
yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hey, I understand what you and Daryl are talking about, and I think what the point that you're trying to bring up is what are some of the problems that we may have that are leading up to all of these maladies with the turnover and the violation of procedures and the prisoners escaping, et cetera, because this has been
Exactly.
a years-long, ongoing problem. Okay, and I'm going to speak from, my perspective of I worked my way through college with the sheriff's department before I went into the military, and then in the military I had some military police duties as well, and not being an employee of Guam DOC or GPD, I know people that are in GPD and DOC, and I think we have a little bit of a disconnect with regard to employment protocols, background checks of the people that are, obviously they can't have, committed felonies, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that stateside now, like very recently, since all of everything that happened with George Floyd and all that stuff, I think they need to take a look at updating some of their procedures and their requirements. There's certain people that just don't have the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this can be for any job, not just for law enforcement. Okay. There's good managers and bad managers, or good truck drivers, bad truck drivers. Okay. Well, there's also people that are representing law enforcement that should not be. And if they update everything, and if they're looking at their background checks, and I don't just mean a check the box one form thing. Are they actually doing a real background check? Are they interviewing friends, family, former teachers, professors? What are they doing with regards to their psych evaluation before they're hired, etc.? I think we've got some people here, quite a few of them actually, that don't have the right mentality for the job. And they think just because they know somebody, or, in one way, shape, or form, a lot of us are related to each other, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They think that that's a pass card. And unfortunately, it leads to problems down the road with job performance and just everyday interpersonal skills of getting along with managers, supervisors, etc. And I think that's where we have a lot of the problems that start at the core, and they kind of blossom from there, so to speak.
Mm.
Just my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a lot of those questions you have occur because of our island, the way our island is. It's there's not a lot of traffic and people coming in and out of different places. A lot of familiarity. Somebody has brought up here that there was a change in directorship, and there could be some sort of ill will between the top administration and those that are in work in the prisons themselves. And if that's the case, I think there should be oversight to find out if that's the case as well. What I'm trying to get to is how do we get to so that we don't have to get to the point of all these incidences where they have to go to the CSC, you know, where it's purely based on procedural. I mean, we could have 50 cases go up to 25 to 50 cases go up to the CSC, and if we don't ask the questions of what's going on, then we're just going to be going next, right, and going 1, 2, 3, going down the list.
We just keep kicking the can down the road, and we just keep having the same problems over and over again. And if it's a problem with upper management, really and truly a problem with upper management being at odds with pretty much everybody else in the staff, then, hey, it's time to kick that can down the road and let's change some upper management, okay? If it's a problem with upper management, and here again, it's not just the hiring and the training procedure. This is an ongoing, okay? It needs to be an ongoing relationship / apprenticeship with everybody on the team. And not only everybody stays updated, but if there needs to be some remedial training, if there needs to be, updates to procedures, and if not, regulation internally, the regulation of everything, then that's what needs to be done. I mean, come on, you've got to keep all the gears working smoothly. That's the bottom line.
Right. Very true. Yeah. Well, thank you for calling in and giving that point of view. There is a lot that goes into being a correctional officer other than just punching the card and watching. You're not babysitting, that's for sure. And all those things have to be taken into consideration. I'm not exactly sure what the process is. Do any of officers take a psychiatric exam or anything like that, the way that the military does sometimes, or upper people in upper management administration in law enforcement? Not too sure, but it's something to look at. Again, I want to get to the point before the CSC is doing their part in trying to figure out if the procedures were followed or not, because it looks like we have a lot of cases, and by a lot I mean more than 3, more than 4, of people being dismissed or fired, and there seems to be real incidences here that go beyond just procedure, and everybody has a right to face what's happened to them and to plead their case, but man, there's a lot of these cases that are happening, and it's not just a matter of I don't think the boss likes me. It's a little bit more than that.
There's also the potential of a big payoff at the end. So if the government of Guam is losing lots of cases and it's in the paper, then it's going to spur more cases because they see that these have been mishandled in the past, and
I'm going to take my turn.
Colleagues are going to, and even lawyers will be willing to roll the dice on you because the payoff is for them too.
Absolutely. Yeah, just I'm I'm not going to. Here, Bonnie Suba was talking about at a time somebody had said just take these prisoners, or Harvey Enga had said on Facebook here, take the prisoners and put them in the States. And Bonnie Suba, who is a retired officer now, I'm not sure how much she served on Guam, but she did serve in the States in Oregon. She said Guam used to do that several years ago. However, Guam found out it was too expensive to house their inmates in the mainland prisons, and then most of the prisons in the mainland turned private, and the cost rose. Wasn't there a time they were looking at privatizing the prison system here?
Yes.
Or even building a new one. What's happened to that?
Well,
it went from prison to hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't sexy anymore.
Not anymore. It was different time, different people in charge. I think that was Lieutenant Governor Tenorio's project, right? Being a former police officer himself, not the current Lieutenant Governor, but
the other
one from from Calvo's administration.
Yeah, I think there was some discussion also of building a prison on Aguizan. That would be, so it's an isolated island, but not too
Alcatraz.
Isolated. Well,
not as harrowing.
Not as not as confining, because the environment's confining.
Oh, okay. Where's that at?
Just south of Tinian.
Oh, okay. Not anywhere near Guam, but wow, that's interesting. We're gonna go to the top of the hour, big halftime show. You're listening to Tall Tales with Jose Martinez here on 93.3 FM, KUSG, The Point. Don't go away. More after this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
New concerns about gas prices. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, as the largest group of foreign oil producers hints at limiting supply.
OPEC Plus nations led by Saudi Arabia and Russia are reportedly considering a cut of up to 2 million barrels of oil a day. White House officials are declining to comment on any potential production cuts, but say President Biden will take necessary steps to protect American consumers. However, Tennessee GOP Senator Marsha Blackburn tells Fox News at Night,
"We have no leverage with OPEC. The OPEC nations combined together are one of the top 5 holders of U.S. debt."
Meanwhile, with just 35 days until the midterms, some regions have seen gas prices jump by as much as 60 cents a gallon.
Fox's Sean Lanchel in Washington. The White House Tuesday reverting to blaming Putin's war for rising gas prices. The president will travel to Fort Myers, Florida in the morning to see some of the damage caused by Hurricane Ian last week, meet with rescue workers and with Governor DeSantis, who says they've mustered a massive response.
There's more urban search and rescue capability in Florida since this storm than has ever been in one place, in one state, since 9/11, when they were in New York City. And so that shows you, I think, that the dedication.
The governor says a private fund to help storm victims has raised nearly $33 million in less than a week. In Polk County, Florida, tragedy compounded with the news that 21-year-old Sheriff's Deputy Blaine Lane, killed early Tuesday while helping to serve an arrest warrant, died from friendly fire. The suspect pulled a gun. Deputies fired, but one of the bullets pierced the wall of the home and struck Deputy Lane outside.
Had he literally been standing 3 inches in or 3 inches back, the round would have missed him.
Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, Deputy Lane, had been on the job just 8 months. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglania from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagana and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagana location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Canceled several weeks ago, Elon Musk's plan to buy Twitter is suddenly back on.
Musk is already tweeting about his pending purchase and the very app he's set to soon own. He wrote, quote, "Buying Twitter is an accelerant to creating X, the everything app." Musk's lawyer confirmed they sent a letter to Twitter explaining Musk's intent to close on the transaction for the original offer. $54.20 a share, in total $44 billion. Now, for months, Musk has been trying to back out of the deal, in part due to his claims that Twitter had misrepresented the amount of fake accounts or bots. Twitter then sued, and a trial was set to start in Delaware very soon, less than 2 weeks.
Fox's Jeff Paul, Musk's offer contingent on financing. Former President Trump appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn a lower court ruling that allows federal prosecutors to examine about 100 of the documents seized in the raid on his home without waiting for the special master in the case to clear them first. A woman convicted in a prolific hacking case will serve no additional jail time.
Paige Thompson has been sentenced in Seattle federal court to time served and 5 years probation. The former tech worker was found guilty in June of stealing the personal info of over 100 million people. Thompson was arrested in 2019 after hacking clients of Capital One, Amazon Web Services, and Michigan State University. The judge cited Thompson's mental health and transgender status as reasons why she was spared prison time. U.S. Attorney Nick Brown expressed disappointment with the decision, saying this is not what justice looks like. Prosecutors had asked for a 7-year sentence. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
Baseball history last night as Aaron Judge blasted his 62nd home run of the season, breaking the American League record set by Roger Maris in 1961. A fan fell over the railing at the Rangers ballpark in a failed effort to catch the ball. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
the big halftime show featuring our band, our flag bearers, and the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery. You too can get your own I'm a Tailgater t-shirt and post a picture of yourself wearing that shirt so you can be on are included in the Rogues Gallery at the big halftime show. I'm just pinning the link right now on Facebook. You can go to www.thepoint.gu and you can look up the I'm a Tailgater t-shirt with the beard, this beard, and the link is there. You could also go on Facebook right now, and there is a link directly to the purveyor who makes these shirts. Here on island, it's local. It's a local purveyor. It's a local company. They make it to order. You too can be a part of the I'm a Tailgater t-shirt Rogues Gallery, taking a selfie and sending it to the Points WhatsApp at 671-797-8255. Now, before we went to the break, I had declared or called out the card of JRM versus Protege Texan about the open burning and open detonation pits that are happening at Taragi, I believe. And I'm just going to continue or restart the article here. And this one is in the Pacific Island Times. Seeking to allay public worries about open burning and open detonation, the Joint Region Marianas reassured the Guam community that the methods adopted by the military to dispose of hazardous wastes are safe and legal. JRM issued the clarification following the District Court of Guam's recent decisions tossing the lawsuit filed by the environmental groups Protege Texan and Earth Justice, alleging that the U.S. Air Force plans to detonate 35,000 pounds of bombs and burn other hazardous waste munitions each year in the open air on Taragi Beach. Under the current open burn, open detonation permit in 2021, we dispose of 470 pounds of explosives and only 100 pounds in 2022 so far, said Catherine Koenig, Public Information Officer for JRM. She added that 35,000 pounds of explosives do not exist for disposal on the range, and there is no plan or need for this grossly exaggerated amount of munitions to be destroyed. While the military is authorized to conduct open burning, Koenig said records indicate that a procedure has not been done at Andersen Air Force Base in over 10 years. The Department of Defense uses open burning or open detonation to demilitarize or destroy waste military munitions that are damaged, expired, or remnants from previous wars. Open burn is a procedure that is authorized when disposing of large quantities of small arms ammunition, Koenig said in an email. Koenig explained that open burning requires a large trench filled with combustible material placed below the disposal ammunition. The combustible material is ignited to consume the powder within the ammunition, she added. As of March 2019, the DoD had 34 sites in 20 states and Guam with open burning and open detonation permits, according to DoD Office of Inspector General's report released in November 2021. In general, this procedure is normally conducted at large range bases within the United States, Koenig said. The report noted that DoD installations use open burning and open detonation when they do not have viable resource recovery and recycling or contained disposal options. DoD installations reported treating over 17 million pounds of waste military munitions by open burning and open detonation per year between 2013 and 2017, stated the report. The DoD open burning and open detonation operations generally complied with relevant environmental laws and agreements. As for open detonation, Koenig said that this method has been determined to be the cleanest and safest way to dispose of deteriorated munitions left over from past wars. The detonation does create byproducts such as nitrogen, water, carbon monoxide, and carbon soot, but most of these chemicals are consumed during the explosion, she said. The detonation does create byproducts such as nitrogen. In response to concerns about the close proximity of the burning and detonation pits to Jigo and Dedido, the island's two most populated villages. Koenig said water testing is done periodically to ensure that no toxic chemicals are found in the aquifer. In a memo released in June, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency noted that open burning of hazardous waste and open detonation are currently prohibited under the Resource Recovery and Conservation Act except for waste explosives, which cannot safely be disposed of through other modes of treatment. Because new technologies routinely become available, a facility must periodically reevaluate at permit issuance and renewal whether this condition has been met to maintain compliance with this requirement, the EPA said. In a 2019 report, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine identified candidate alternative technologies that have potential to demilitarize an entire munition, and these technologies are grouped into two categories. Contained detonation, where an entire munition is demilitarized or destroyed in an enclosed chamber with an associated pollution abatement system, and contained burn, where a munition is thermally treated in an enclosed chamber, typically an incinerator or a furnace combined with a pollution abatement system. For many munitions, it is not feasible to demilitarize the whole munition using a single alternative technology due to technical, safety, environmental, and cost issues, states the report titled Alternatives for the Demilitarization of Conventional Munitions. And these alternative technologies have both pros and cons. Implementing alternative treatment technologies for munitions that are currently treated via OBOD will result in reduced emissions, but will be associated with increased capital and operating costs, although with lower closure costs, the report said. Koenig said the proposed alternatives are heavily toxic to the environment and would create a large amount of waste that would have to be dealt with after the fact. She noticed that the munitions found on Guam are in various stages of decomposition, and the condition of the explosives is unknown. This inherently creates a more hazardous situation for the residents here on Guam, she said. And that's the report for GRM, Joint Region Marianas. I don't know. Do you think there could be a joint effort with Mr. Davis LeBlanc and burning trash to energy? There is some sort of let's see here. The technologies that they're talking about that can do the contained detonation, and then it's enclosed in a chamber with associated pollution abatement system. That sounds like the trash to energy.
It sounds like a scrubber, but it also has to be bomb-proof because you're throwing a bomb into it. So I don't think they're talking about the regular, vanilla, vanilla flavored, scrubbers for the in
throw
the
in your
smokestack.
trash while you're at it. Why not? The picture shows them throwing in. It looks like military uniforms. It doesn't look like munitions. It looks like cloth. And
they probably have the 500-pound bomb wrapped up in old clothing.
Right. But that is interesting. It went from that huge amount of 35,000 pounds a year to only 470 last year, and then so far this year only 100 pounds.
Right.
So
But they had to have found that number somewhere.
Yes, and I'm interested.
Somewhere.
Is it projection, I guess, with the buildup? That's probably what they're looking at.
Or are they planning on clearing some areas that had not been cleared in the past, such as around Patty Point at the end of the Anderson runway where
they
they
found
whole
things,
airplanes full of bombs.
Yeah. So, yeah, that could be, but it is interesting. They don't have any she said that there's 35,000 pounds of explosives. She being the PIO, Koenig, said that they do not exist for disposal on the range. So not sure where that's coming from. But it is interesting. I'm glad that they put that out there. Whether you believe them or not, that's up to you.
Well, yeah, but the 35,000 pounds is a projection or an expectation, and If the PIO says they don't exist, it means they don't have them. They're not holding it in their hands. It's not in some already established inventory. So these are really two different things, apples and oranges.
But that's up to the EPA, the Guam EPA, to decide, according to the judge, according to Chief Judge Tedinko. Next thing on the card, I'm going to go to a little bit more milder topic. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because recently we had a trades fair at Expo on Thursday, sponsored by the Guam Contractors Association. And my kids' school, Career Tech High Academy Charter School, attended it on Thursday, and that happened up there at FD. But this article, and this is also fishing. I'm fishing for a couple of people. They know who they are. Because this editorial comes from our very famous, just found out who he was, Mr. Governor Hogan from Maryland. But I think he did a really good piece here. Is college worth it? Not for everyone. A degree should signify an education, not only a credential. I will have the pleasure on Wednesday of speaking to students at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. What will I tell them? The best way for the next generation of public service leaders to give back is by diminishing the artificial value of their expensive college degrees. It's time to debunk the fiction that a prestigious degree is the only key to the American dream. I called this one academia versus trades, or credentials versus education.
It's a losing premise from the word go.
The outrageous cost of college it gets a little political. The outrageous cost of college is a crisis in its own right. Years of throwing public money at the problem has yet to solve it. But the skyrocketing cost of energy, housing, and healthcare is also a crisis that disproportionately harms Americans who didn't attend college. It's unfair and counterproductive to force hardworking men and women to pay off other people's college debts. Historically, higher education has played a part in developing civic virtue in public life. But more and more higher education institutions, enabled by increasingly bloated administrations, are leading the charge to tear down what makes this nation great. Some elite academic institutions are openly hostile to core American values, such as freedom of speech, which undergirds our success as a nation. We must reorient the education system to fit the economic and cultural needs of the 21st century. A patriotic and skilled workforce, encumbered by unbearable levels of debt, will allow the U.S. to compete with China and other adversaries while defending the values of the American founding. To begin the hard work of reconfiguring the broken higher education system, there are 3 critical steps we can take immediately. First, employers should stop requiring college degrees for jobs that don't need them. In Maryland, we've led the charge by announcing that thousands of state jobs will no longer have such requirements. If more states followed our lead, the trend could spread to the private sector. The federal government should also expand Pell Grant subsidies for short-term, skill-based training, not only expensive 4-year degrees. That one I put an asterisk to. Second, the federal government and states must drastically ramp up apprenticeship programs to create alternative pathways to careers like cybersecurity, healthcare, and the skilled trades. Maryland's innovative EARN program has successfully created partnerships with these kinds of industries to develop job training programs, generating $17.32 of economic impact for every dollar of state funding. Third, Congress should limit executive power to forgive student loans unilaterally. To deal effectively with the aftermath of Mr. Biden's reckless action, we must make it clear to the next generation of leaders that this won't ever happen again, whether they pursue their education at Harvard or another university or through alternative pathways. A good education is the foundation to a successful career and a healthy civic society. But a good education doesn't necessarily require a 4-year degree, especially when such excessive credentialism falls on the taxpayer's dime. And that was Mr. Happy Hogan's editorial. And then next one comes from the Guam PDN. Last week, Thursday, the students went to the 2022 Industry Trade Fair and Expo at Father Duane's Memorial School. About 40-year students from Career Tech High Academy Charter School attended the Industry Trade Fair and Expo Thursday. We are holding this expo for vendors and exhibitors to show their equipment and technology in the industry to some contractors and even the general public who own or are starting their own business or construction project, said James Martinez, president of the Guam Contractors Association. And yes, I can say that that is a relative of mine. That's my older cousin. The high school students were expected to each interview at least 3 industry professionals to learn how they got to their current position while getting tips or advice on how to be successful in a career. I like that we brought them here to see how it is right after high school, and there are tons of job opportunities for them to explore with great benefits, said Lillian Billamon, a science teacher at Career Tech High. Sophomore Peyton Torrey said he is focused on learning photography skills, but is planning to take an electrical skills class in the spring semester. I was looking into the electrical companies that are here, and they also referred me to construction companies to work with them, Torrey said. Angelina Dick, a sophomore, said she isn't currently on a career path, but is taking 2 elective courses in robotics and engineering to learn more about those industries. She was particularly interested in a company at the expo that provided drone services. Construction industry representatives said they were happy to attend the expo to make the public and contractors aware of what they can offer. Roland Duenas, an employee of Pacific Unlimited, which provides heavy equipment rental and sell service, said it was a unique opportunity to be a part of the expo that brought different services under one roof. The foot traffic's been great. People have been asking about forklifts and how to purchase one, said Duenas. And this article is dated, but it said the Industry Trade Fair Expo continues 9 a.m. Friday, and that was last Friday at the Phoenix Center. Just a little blurb. That last sentence with Duenas saying the foot traffic's been great. People have been asking about forklifts and how to purchase one. I don't think he was referring to the high schoolers.
No, there must have been some other foot traffic.
Could have been. But it's just funny that they include that sentence in an article about the high school students. But I digress. But it's very interesting. I'm glad they had this expo. There used to be a lot of them that I used to go to in the States just because they're always great information you can get out of them, whether you're in the industry or not. I always say when you go to these expos, a lot of them in the States, and I hope we have more expos here for different industries, bring a swag bag with you because companies love to give things out in literature and information. And sometimes they have new ideas and techniques to teach you and give to you, and you're going to carry home a lot of stuff with you, not just the knowledge and
well, then
ideas.
one of the exhibitors should be giving out swag bags so their logos are all over the place.
They do if they don't. But I'm glad these students went there. Career Tech High Academy Charter School is located in Agate. I think this is their 3rd or 4th year, and they're on a path, and I say this with a little bit of knowledge because my son goes there, but they're on a path to teaching a balance of academics and trades at that school and allowing the students to explore the different pathways, and I think that's pretty cool. We're in dire need of trades here on Guam. We used to have a trade school, right, GCC, at a time.
Yeah, vocational
tech
school.
Yeah, and I remember seeing them when I was growing up in the States, but then not so much anymore. The one that was in Georgia when I was growing up is no longer. Well, they might be creating a new one these days because there is a need for trades and vocations, but they kind of petered out in the 90s.
By and large, they followed the money.
Yeah.
There was money for community colleges, and so they morphed into community colleges.
Right, exactly.
And then they
took them out of the high school level, though. Yeah.
But they still continued to provide coursework for high school level students as an outreach, and also trades training at their college campus. But
Yeah.
it was the funding, because the funding was for community colleges. So that was why they had morphed. But I don't know what happened to the trades high schools. That was the one that really left the scene.
I had a really good friend, one of my best friends in Georgia. We went through beginning of high school, because I moved there after Hawaii. Beginning of high school, and then towards our junior year, he ended up going to vocational school from our regular high school. And I remember the plus thing for him is that he was able to get a job, go to school for a couple hours in the morning at the trades vocational school, and then get a job in the afternoon. I thought that was pretty interesting. At the time, for us, if you had a job while you're going to high school, it was pretty much because you had a car. That was it. But to have that option for kids, and I think it's a great option these days, especially when we see so many. We have a lot of older kids in school here on Guam, and I know the law allows them to be in school up to, what, age 19, 18? And by this time, I would just suggest that maybe academics is not the pathway, and vocational and going into the workforce is, and it should not be the last resource either, but it seems to be kind of like that mentality, right? If you can't do academics, then you go to a trade school, you learn a trade, and that shouldn't be the narrative or the rhetoric.
And one of the main roles that GCC is playing here on Guam is for students who dropped out of high school or didn't get an adequate high school education, return for their GED and get it, because qualification for so many jobs requires
at least high school
academic
equivalency, right?
Diploma.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's right. And GCC, do they still host the Trades Academy there?
They still have trades, but it's based on the economics of having enough students for the classes.
That's true.
Same as the Trades Academy. It's you have to have enough people in order to pay the instructors, because the instructors are qualified.
Right, right. So I'm just looking over here on Facebook and some of the comments. We have this one interesting comment from listener Patrick B, talking about the burn pits, or the munitions and burn disposal. He says open burn pits is not burning of trash. Open burn pit is burning munition only. I think he was referring to my comment. I was just doing tongue-in-cheek there, but he makes a good point. Also, the picture being shown in file photo from either Iraq or Afghanistan, burn pits, that's actually burned trash and chemicals, etc. Those burn pits were made because every item on those bases in war zones is required to be destroyed as to not make its way out to the public. The burn pit that is being talked about on Anderson is a munitions burn pit only, and only munitions, basically setting fire to types of explosives, safely burning them down. Pacific Times skewed the narrative, along with many others, to have you believe the base is just burning whatever it wants, when it wants, and how it wants. And I agree that the difference between what's happened on Anderson and what's been talked about in the Middle East as far as burn pits is stark. It's a huge difference, because what goes into those pits also in the Middle East is also human waste, which is also toxic when it gets burnt. So thank you for that comment, Patrick. You are listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. We are going to the 7th inning stretch. Don't go away.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Siduos Maasi Guam for 40 amazing years of support for the UOG Endowment Foundation. Through your generous contributions, we have been able to award many student scholarships, help fund college programs, and facilitate capital improvement projects at the University of Guam. As we celebrate this milestone occasion, we look forward to your continued partnership and many more years of collaboration with our island community. Viva UOG Endowment Foundation.
And we are back.
I'm pulling down the wrong.
It's Daryl's
slide.
favorite song.
Yeah.
So it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. We are back here at Tall Tales on KUSG 93.3 FM. My name is Jose. We had Daryl in the booth. He is on. Is that a pipe organ they're playing?
Yes, I was just listening to the end of it because I can over here.
Yeah. Is that a what's the
Pipe
usual
organ.
brand of a pipe organ?
Wurlitzer.
Wurlitzer. That's what I.
Yeah.
I always get that mistake with the gun, the big gun. But anyways, Wurlitzer, and then the other jazz organ is the Hammond, right?
Hammond,
the one that
yes.
warbles. Yeah, that's pretty good. Those who don't know, Daryl also is a jazz aficionado, and you do shows still on
Yeah, I've been on Sunday nights for 33 years.
Sunday
Yeah.
nights KPRG though.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
the dial number?
89.3.
Don't repeat it ever again. Just kidding.
No.
89
6 to 11.
89 point. Yeah, and you play from vinyl. Some CDs,
Some
mostly
CDs,
vinyl.
but mostly vinyl.
So you're gonna hear that old school needle to the vinyl sound.
All that damage from previous playings, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's his other forte, and it's been awesome talking to you about jazz because sometimes my age I feel like I'm the only one that listens to it. Because, and thanks to Bonnie Supa putting on comments, sometimes there's a stigma about listening to jazz. Like, what the heck is that music? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, but it shows up in movies and
Right.
advertising to denote sophistication.
All
and,
the good
and
background music.
ease of life. And I don't know why it should have a stigma, but it seems to. It doesn't bother me. I
Right.
like
It's
it
good
for
stuff.
what it is.
So we're going to feel good talking to another thing on the card that has to do, well, this is not about, well, this kind of mentions Ken LG, but this is mostly about Terlahi versus another LG, and that's the governor. Okay, let's see here. Oh, we have another Joe. Before we get to Terlahi versus the governor, another Joe, you want to talk about trades education?
Yeah, I heard you all mention in conversation GCC, and GCC stopped being a vocational high school. I want to say sometime after 2000. I don't know when. I don't know. I don't recall. My memory's still fuzzy there. But they stopped, and it shifted over towards more of a liberal arts, like a 2-year college feeling, like associate's degrees, but they still have the vocational stuff, but they do not emphasize. Well, I think they're starting to emphasize more like heavy equipment, but they didn't have it for high school students. But just on a side note, our lieutenant governor, he's a graduate of GCC, and his forte, his shop was in accounting.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a trades. That's in a lot of colleges. But yeah, that's I think when I first moved here to Guam, it was getting I think there was a resurgence of talks of vocations and trades. I know that there is a budding culinary school that was being created or was growing within GCC, and then the talks of the Trades Academy that initially was being run by the Guam Contractors Association. I think they're two separate entities now, or they graduated to their own thing, And I believe a lot of that is out of the GCC also. But yeah, there's a mix between academics and trades at GCC because it is a 2-year school.
But the disappointment is they don't emphasize. They shifted away from high school students.
Oh yeah,
And you were talking about giving opportunities, training and careers for younger people, and it just seems that would have been something good to keep. And it doesn't seem as though it's doing. There isn't a plan to help the younger generations. So yeah, I just want to. I'm not sure where are you with the card, or did you finish with everything? Or?
Whatever you want to talk about, Joe, we'll talk about it here. And if you don't want to talk about it anymore, just say the word and we'll stop talking about it.
So yeah, there's all this concern about the saber rattling and are we, are we safe or in danger, and the difference between the conflicts, and I kind of back in the 80s, there's all this talk about mutually assured destruction and fear. And we looked at our elders, hey, aren't you supposed to be afraid? There's a joke for this.
Okay, so you're going back to the Korean missile testing, not exactly the Korean missile crisis, but the Korean missile testing, which could become a crisis. Yeah,
all of the threats which would imply nuclear, the ICBMs and all this weaponry.
Well, I recall you, Joe, if I could ask, I recall you saying that you talk to Manumco a lot and get stories from them. Have you talked to some of your elders? Have you had conversations with them about how they feel about the threat of Korea? Do they recognize it as a threat? Do they know what's going on?
So that's what I was getting into, but it's more along the lines of a joke. But these are elders, like only a few, like within 10, 15 years older than me, right? And then so what you do is we used to go, they would drill, make the kids go sit under a desk or a table, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you go and you sit in squat position and kiss the rear behind goodbye.
All right.
Terrible joke. Anyway, so I don't know what the prevalent topic of conversation is right now. I just kind of wonder, when did you see? You've been doing pretty good there, Mr. Jose Martinez. But when is the tall one returning?
Oh boy, how do you take those kind of compliments, Daryl? He's like doing a great job, but when is the other guy getting back? The tall one.
Not before the end
I'm
of
just
today.
kidding with you, Joe. The tall one. You're stuck with me for the next 2 weeks, Joe. How about that?
Okay. Well,
at least till the end of October. He'll be back before Election Day. That's what he told me.
That's right, because he can't miss that. He has to wait till the last.
He's going to be here for that.
Put in his vote. He's going to make sure he gets every bit of information.
Well, with Bob Klitzkie being gone, and I'm going to tell him he's not really missing out on anything about campaign-wise. There really isn't anything going on.
You're saying it's been quiet, and it's just kind of weird because with Roe versus Wade being overturned, you hear all these stories stateside.
Yeah.
You kind of wonder what is our 36th Guam legislature doing, and why isn't there more being heard? Now, we're coming out of, supposedly this is endemic, right? We're coming out of this pandemic. I know a lot of people are still kind of afraid and worried, and, myself included, but I'm feeling more confident going out there, and like occasionally I'll take the mask off, and then, and then I'll put it back on, and I'll take it off,
You're a rebel, Joe.
Going on.
You're a rebel.
Right?
All right.
And so now I'm trying to figure out, are people going to start getting more involved and say, hey, what's up with this, with the pro-life bills? Are you guys actually going to vote on it? Bill 291-36, Bill 103-36, the telemedicine and the Heartbeat Act, those two. And then there's, what's the deal with the AG? Is he's not going to enforce public law? Was it 20-134?
Yeah, and those two, and you know me, if you listen to the show and heard me speak in other places, those are important issues to me. I don't think they are necessarily campaign issues, because whether or not the campaign is going on or the election season over, I'm still going to be advocate for life and anti-abortion, and we'll still move on it. So I wouldn't worry too much about where that's going to be a campaign issue. I just don't even know if anyone's campaigning right now. It is really quiet.
So is it public safety, public Daryl, help me out here. Daryl, I think you're the expert here.
Okay.
Come on, guys. What is it? Public safety, public health.
Are you talking about campaign issues?
Yes.
It's whatever the voter wants to put their vote in.
Well, there's education.
Why does everyone think that the solutions have been already accomplished, and all we're doing is waiting for the beauty pageant so we can mark our cards on who's going to be the prettiest in the land? I mean, this is we've got lots of unresolved problems on Guam that can be addressed through our representatives establishing smart policy. And we have a $1 billion government of Guam that is standing ready to implement whatever the policy is. And I don't see anything but, oh man, this status quo is great. Let's just, let's just stroll into 2023. We're doing fine. And I don't buy that. I'm a malcontent because it's
all about the campaign, though.
They haven't figured out how to collect trash. They only have 4 trucks running. They haven't figured that out yet. They can't even in an emergency. They can't procure parts for trucks. I mean, really.
That's
come on. I think they're fulfilling their promises from the previous election, and because of that, they're taking a long way around, which are the important issues, and so the only thing to do is to make up for their what do you call it, shortcomings by criticizing the opposition. So I don't know if that makes sense or if that sounds right, but I've seen like a campaign ad for the Democrat side where they're saying that the Republican side is they're not they weren't there. Basically, they weren't present. And then I saw the Republican ad against the Democrats, saying that there's no strings attached. So they're implying, well, were you there, or well, you got strings attached, that sort of thing. That's things that comes to my mind as far as campaign ads. But I don't know if it's, as you say, sexy to talk about campaign ads, or if it's something that's stressful. At this point, what do people talk about it? Are they tired already, or what's going on there, Daryl?
Well, we haven't gone back. We haven't gone back. No, but see, we haven't gone back. I was just looking at Facebook comments, and Bonnie brings up a point that it doesn't seem like anyone's fulfilled their campaign promises. Well, nobody in the press is going back and digging up the old campaign promises and saying, this is what you promised to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We do it here when we talk about the governor and his transparency.
Isn't that also the opposition's role to bring it up?
Yes, it is.
And call them?
Yes, it is. And we don't see it. There's no campaign.
Look, those are to me, those are the things that are repeated every single campaign season. I just want to say that the person who's making the most who's making the most waves out there, who's campaigning, is going to win. We saw that during the primaries. We saw that also. Sometimes you don't have to have a multiple platform campaign. Just stick to one issue. We saw that with Senator Clint Rangel, who I have very huge reservations about what he campaigned on, but he was very successful in stating that he was going to work hard on the marijuana industry and issue.
That's true.
And he got his stuff passed because he focused on that campaign. So there isn't one platform, I think, that's going to rally everybody together. I think when it comes to legislatures, it's going to be personality. It's going to be if the campaign is, and are they going to be talking to the issues that somebody wants to be passed? Remember, here on Guam, we have very low voter turnout. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what the island is thinking about. But before we even talk about campaign platforms, we have to talk about why nobody is deciding how their government is going to be run. On Guam is a very low minority of people, which are the voters that are deciding what's going on in Guam. But I want to thank you for your call. We're going to go to, as always, Joe, good call. We're going to the Churchill Downs for the home stretch. We'll be right back with more Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. Don't go.
Attention all passengers. This is your pre-boarding announcement for flight UOG EF40, scheduled for departure on Saturday, October 8th for our gala destination at the Dusitani Guam Resort. Passenger check-in time is 5 p.m. Your onboard entertainment will be a reunion of the casuals with Jesse and Ruby. For ticketing information, please call our agents at 671-735-2957. We thank you for choosing to fly with the UOG Endowment Foundation. Enjoy your flight with Triton's Transforming the World.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
And welcome back to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. Don't forget that voting for Pika's Best has started already. You can vote once per day, but you can vote for over. There's lots of categories. You can vote for all the categories, but if you vote in 25 categories or more, you get a chance to win $250 a raffle that Guam PDN is running. But just want to remind everybody that the Point is in the running for Best Radio Station, Pika's Best Radio Station for 2022, alongside our sister stations Star 101 and Boss 104, as well as Best Radio Personality. Ray Gibson is nominated. Kyle Mandapat from Star 101 is nominated. Daryl Lizama from Boss 104 and Albert Wan from Boss 104 as well. So we have 4 of our own in the top 5 running for Best Radio Personality. And then all 3 of our stations from Choice are in the running for Best Radio Station. Now, if you do go to vote on GuamPDN.com/Best of Guam, you can look for us, our nominations under service. For some reason, it's not under entertainment or what's the other thing? Entertainment and leisure.
We provide a service.
It's under service.
Yay.
So maybe that might be changing soon. And you can vote all the way up to October 28th. So vote early and vote often, but once a day only. Now, I want to read this article from the Post talking about transparency raised in a trustees confirmation hearing for GMH. Because mostly so because it gives a good example of what the legislature is supposed to do. Not being combative, but really asking the questions that pertain to transparency, especially during confirmation hearings. Transparency at the island's only public hospital was a common talking point at Tuesday's appointment hearing for Teresa Damian Borja, a medical doctor nominated to serve on the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority Board of Trustees. Speaker Therese Terlahi, who presided over the hearing, made note of an arrest in September of Republican senatorial candidate Ken Leon Guerrero, who attempted to remain in a closed meeting involving GMHA staff. I just want to give the Post a little bit commendation for saying that he attempted to remain in a meeting. We learned it was closed because they removed him, where other times it was reported that he had barged in. Leon Guerrero said he had attended the meeting for about 1.5 hours as a stakeholder trying to find out more information on the construction of a new public hospital, which is part of a planned medical campus. It says, according to Mr. Leon Guerrero in a statement made to the media, the meeting was full of public government officials talking about public policy, public health care policy, public lands, the public hospital, and public financing. According to GMH, the event was a training workshop with a firm called HDR Incorporated and was about the island's hospital, not specifically a new hospital. Terlahi read from a document at the appointment hearing, adding that there is an upcoming oversight hearing on the proposed medical campus. Excuse me. Are you aware of this issue about public access to information and transparency regarding the public hospital and the board's role in facilitating transparency? Speaker Terlahi asked Borja. The doctor, who previously served as a GMHA board trustee from 2006 through 2010, said she was aware of the issue, but she isn't privy to current information on the matter. Speaking instead of her prior experience on the board, Borja said members at the time received legal guidance on what they could and could not do, making mention of public sessions and executive sessions in which privileged information is discussed. But Terlahi noted that the GMHA meeting behind Leon Guerrero's arrest was not an executive session. It was a hospital meeting, and from what I gather, they're talking about public financing, and that's what concerns me. If it's one of those cases, this is the issue right now with the public and GMH. We want to know what's happening up there. What are the plans, especially if they involve financing? What are the impacts to patients, and what are the delays in fixing the facilities? Things like that, Terlahi said. Every single member of our community wants to see the hospital succeed, but we're going to criticize the hospital when we run into things like that, where we have issues with hiring transparency or questionable things. The trustees, I say, get control of that and be active and involved, and make sure that you are the policy setters for the hospital, Speaker Terlahi added. And then it goes on to describe a little bit more about what's going on with the hospital and cost. Getting back to the speaker stated that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services visited GMH recently, and that she was hoping to hear the purpose of the visit, as well as some of the preliminary findings. I haven't received that either, and I'm hoping that you as trustees would discuss this and whatever is possible to disclose what you will make it a board policy to disclose. No runaround and whatnot. We have gotten better because of CMS, because of them telling us you need to do better in those areas. And so I just bring us all along, Terlahi said. Senator Joanne Brown indicated there isn't enough open dialogue about how officials are ensuring quality health care on the island and care that the community can afford. This is the level of engagement for the most part, and this is not the most productive, Brown said, referring to the public hearing style of forum. When you see above-step recruitment for things that we don't look at as critical, and then other critical things are not addressed or they're left behind, you wonder why. And then that erosion of confidence continues. And there's a lot of good people working hard every day that keep that place together. But when these other things happen that are distracting, then you really wonder what's the priority. And again, I commend the speaker, and I commend Senator Brown talking about transparency. But you know, one thing that I really wish they would do when they do talk about issues is be specific. You know, when Senator Joanne Brown brings up these general a general issue she has, to me, I think it just goes over everybody's heads because it doesn't really address anything.
She wants you to know she cares.
Okay, but you know what I'm talking about. This is not just her. Every other senator that goes up there, either have your staff really do some homework so you can ask some really good questions and not just general platitudes or something that makes it seem like you know what's going on. I'm not saying she doesn't, but I want to see I want to know what she's talking about when she says, when you see above-step recruitment for things that we don't look as critical, and then other critical things that are not addressed or they're left behind, you wonder why. And I'm left wondering, what is she talking about? I'm sure there is something she has in mind, but I want to know specifically what these critical things are and what these non-critical things are that she's referring to. And that's the same thing with Speaker Terlahi. I understand where they're coming from as far as general questions to Borja, but in an oversight, I want to hear more specific questions about things.
Maybe there's not enough column inches in the newspaper, or you know, we have to tune in to the online broadcast, you know, the video conference.
Let's get to Sam in the green room who wants to talk about campaigning. Sam, we have a few minutes left, and the floor is yours.
Hey, Jose, I'll try and make that quick. Yeah, I really like this last one about the accountability issue and for how he's kind of putting a little bit of fire into the cause. But I guess it kind of parallels. I sent Ray a WhatsApp on this morning, and I called in because of your last, I guess, monologue before we went to commercial and talking about a real quick here. I think Island right now is more, at least on the radio stations, more political on the PICA best of than the campaign, than the election in 5 weeks.
Well, it's kind of controversial because it's in-house competition now.
Well, I mean, and good for you because it gives you guys a lot of money, but all your advertisers are asking to go vote too.
True.
You hear the names of your advertisers, but you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely.
It's your advertisers, it's your DJs, it's not only your stations, it's the other stations too, but I think it's kind of really sad that PICA is getting more political attention than the island.
Well, maybe if we had a 26-day voting period. I don't know. More than just 1 day of voting. It would be very interesting. You know, kind of like what they did in 2020 in the States.
Isn't there advanced voting already in underway?
Yeah, there's advanced. But I'm talking about multiple, like voting more than 1 day. But yeah, Sam, thank you for calling. I'm sorry it's at the tail end of the program, but
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a great day. All right, you're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. Thank you for bringing us to the end of the show, in which we now greet our pristine president.
Pristine?
Pristine.
I'll remind you of that.
Preteen in his mind. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Fox News. President Biden preparing to travel to hurricane-ravaged Fort Myers, Florida later this morning.
The president will meet with small business owners and local residents impacted by Hurricane Ian and thank the federal, state, and local officials working around the clock.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, Governor Ron DeSantis, who has sparred with the president on various political issues, says in a disaster, politics takes a pause.
I think he's going to maybe tour the air. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I know I'm going to have a briefing with him, and we are going to meet.
Nearly a week after Ian stormed ashore in southwest Florida, people in several communities are still stranded by floodwaters.
Anywhere from 4 to 8 feet in some places. So just getting food to people who are isolated, is a real challenge. And a lot of those people have lost their homes, seen their neighbors lose their homes, and many of whom we've spoken to are really traumatized.
Fox's Steve Harrigan in Arcadia, Florida. Attorneys for former President Trump have asked the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn an order from a federal appeals court that allows federal prosecutors to examine some of the documents seized from Mar-a-Lago before the special master completes his review to determine if they are protected. A day after a provocative North Korean missile launch, jitters in South Korea as a ballistic missile live fired during joint U.S. war games malfunctioned and exploded at a South Korean air base, panicking nearby residents. On the last day of baseball's regular season, a 61-year-old American League record falls.
High fly ball, deep left.
The call on the Yes Network as Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge hit his 62nd home run of the season, beating the record set by Roger Maris in 1961. Another big day on Wall Street yesterday. The Dow climbed 825 points, but early morning Dow futures are trading more than 150 points lower. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite